Okay, how's everybody doing? Happy Easter to everybody. Once again, I'm on the streets all by myself. I'm all alone. The car that's behind me belongs to me, so I'll pan around here a little bit so you can see that this is absolutely deserted. This area is absolutely deserted, has been deserted for quite some time. So even God has to take a break for this virus. On Easter, I see where a lot of the churches were not able to meet, which is kind of unique because I grew up, of course, in Christian churches, and we always had big Easter services. And for Easter services not to take place this year shows you how extraordinary at times we are living in. And like I say, just look at where I'm at here. I'm in one of the prime tourist areas in Southern California, a little over a block from the beach, and the streets are literally deserted. And I think it's 8, 9 o'clock at night. So it's absolutely a ghost town. I'd like to go to Las Vegas right now. I've been to Los Angeles. Los Angeles is absolutely closed down. Everybody told me not to go. They said you're wasting your time to go to Los Angeles because there's nothing going on up there. And I was going to do some business, and there was nothing going on. Actually got a police officer out tonight. So we've got one police officer tonight driving around. But anyway, what I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about two things. The first thing I want to talk about how quickly things are going to start getting back to normal. I mean, that's a huge question. It's got to be on a lot of people's minds because every day that the economy is shut down, every day people aren't working, every day people aren't getting a paycheck, we're getting further and further away from the ability for things to get back to normal. And not only that, for people to exist without having a lot of pain in their lives. And what I mean by pain is I'm not only talking about financial pain, I'm talking about emotional pain. I'm talking about substance abuse. I'm talking about alcoholism. I'm talking about everything that goes along with not making money or being in a stressful situation. I mean, I can imagine what's going on. I actually know somebody that's an electrician right now who does work on his own. He's a self-employed electrician, but he can't work right now because his kids are out of school, so he has to stay home and watch the kids because they don't have any child care, and his wife is a nurse, so she's busy. She's working in hospitals right now, but he himself has got to stay home and watch the kids, so he can't work. Well, it's very stressful for him and his family, and he was telling me the other night that it's really getting to their family, that their kids are out of school, and he can't work, and he's got a lot of work to do, and it's backing up, and it's causing him a lot of stress. So this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. How quickly will the economy get going, not only because of financial reasons, but because of everything else that goes along with it that creates a lot of problems in people's lives. Not to mention the fact that I think a lot of people probably are short of cash. Holding cash has never been a good idea, especially in an inflationary time. So a lot of people don't have tens of thousands of $20,000 in the bank account for an emergency. Most people probably have a few $1,000s in the bank account for emergency. So this is probably going to be a stressful time for a lot of people. And I just don't know how much longer it's going to go on. I personally believe it's going to go on for quite a while. And the reason I think it's going to go on for quite some time, and it's starting to rain a little bit. I hope it's not messing up my screen. So I'm going to get over here underneath the awning, or underneath the, there's a poor business guy right there. Looks like he's checking out his business, but I'm going to get over here underneath something that's got a little bit of cover. So how long will this go on? I mean, how long are we going to stay where things aren't happening? Because, and like I said the other night, when you shut down like food operations or farming operations, all the things are being shut down right now because nobody's buying anything. How long is it going to take to get those things back up to speed so that they are operational again? And the longer you keep things shut down, the more expensive it is, and the harder it is to keep it going, get it back up. I personally don't think we're going to be up and running back to normal until midsummer. I don't think it's going to be May. I don't think it's going to be June. I'd say it's probably going to be July before you see much happening. And the reason I say that is because there's a concern, an obvious concern, of the fact that there's a lot of people that could be asymptomatic. What I mean by asymptomatic is the fact that they could be carrying coronavirus but have no symptoms. And unless you can completely trust people not having the virus, you can't be around them, because if they could be carrying the virus and you let everything just happen like it's normally been happening, you could have a reoccurrence where it could be a lot worse than it was prior to everything being shut down. So if you kind of say, okay, it's getting bad, we better let things go back to the way they were before, and everybody goes back to work again, everybody starts opening the stores again, everything starts to go back to normal, and then a lot of people should get sick all over again because a lot of people were carrying the virus, but they weren't manifesting any symptoms of the virus, you could be in big trouble. So I don't believe, unless there is some sort of massive testing going on, or there's some sort of remedy like a vaccine, that you're going to have people go back to work anytime soon, or the economy start up anytime soon. I think it's going to be pretty much this way for the rest of the summer, or probably throughout the summer, probably towards the end of summer, midsummer, before things start happening again. Which means there's going to be an incredible amount of stimulus needed to carry people through this period of time. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about the stimulus that's about ready to take place, because it's going to be a massive amount of stimulus. It's going to have to carry people through the next 3 or 4 months before things can start to get back to normal. And then maybe towards fall, things can start to be a little bit better. By then, maybe a vaccine will be around, so people will be a little bit more protected. But then we're going to have to worry about the next one, which I'm sure there'll be some others coming up soon. So after this, I mean, I hope nothing as bad as this, but I think we could see more of these in the future. So there's going to be a lot of money printing. And I've talked about that before, how money gets created, how it gets printed. It actually just gets made out of nothing. So there's going to be a lot of stimulus, a lot of quantitative easing, a lot of money being borrowed that is going to inflate the currency. That's going to make the money in your pocket, it's actually a hidden tax if you think about it. Because the more quantity there is of something, the less it's the value of it. So if I have millions and millions of something, it's going to be a lot less valuable than if I just have a few of something. You know, if I have a 426 Dodge Hemi, it's going to be a lot more valuable than if I have, you know, a 1999 or a 2010 F100 Ford Chevrolet pickup, or Ford pickup, 150 pickup. Because the Hemi is a very valuable car. The pickup, they made thousands of them. So obviously the scarcity of the Hemi, and the reason I use Hemi is because I used to think about those back when I was younger. But the scarcity of the Hemi makes it a very valuable car. And I actually had an opportunity to buy one for very cheaply, and I didn't do it. But the scarcity of the Hemi makes that car very, very, very valuable. Whereas the money now is going to become less and less valuable. And it's the fact that we've got this going on is going to make the money less valuable because of the fact of the stimulus that's about ready to take place. However, the stimulus that's about ready to get kicked into the economy is almost a necessity, because our economy was heading towards kind of a deflationary period. And deflation is the worst thing that can possibly happen in an economy. And the reason deflation is so bad, and I've never lived in really deflationary times. I don't think any of us have. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and everything's always inflated. If you bought real estate, it went up in value. If you purchased hard assets, they went up in value. And the reason they always went up in value is because of the money printing and the inflation. So everything, hard assets, always held their value and increased. In fact, Donald Trump always calls himself the king of debt. The reason Donald Trump calls himself the king of debt is because he used debt to buy assets that increased in value. So when he bought a building in Manhattan, the Trump Tower or whatever building that he owns there, and he borrowed billions of dollars to build or buy the building, hundreds of millions or whatever it was, as the value of the real estate went up, of course, Donald Trump's wealth went up. So that's why Donald Trump likes debt, because debt made him rich. The more he borrowed and the more he put in the right place, the more wealthy he became. Well, that's why you do not want deflation, because if things deflate and they reverse, then all those things go back in value. So let's just take, for instance, here in San Diego. I talked last night about, or the other night, last time I made a video about buying or building $1 million house and then selling it for $1.5 million. All of a sudden, if that house that I built for $1 million deflates back to a few $100,000, guess what? You just put a lot of people out of work, because now nobody wants to buy the house because it's less valuable than when you purchased it. So people don't want to buy houses. So there's an entire real estate market that goes away because nobody's buying houses, everybody's selling houses. Well, I guess it continues, but it's more of a sell than a buy market. But think about the builders and think about the people that work and the people that create. Nothing gets created and built in a deflationary cycle because everything retracts. Everything goes backwards. The money becomes more valuable, but people do not want to do anything with the money because they're holding on to money because it's more valuable. So they don't go out and build, they don't create, they don't start businesses, they don't do new things because the money is contracting. So there's no reason to go out and expand the economy because there's no reason to, because it's better just to hold on to the money because the money's going backwards or the money's becoming more valuable. So we've always fought against the deflation, and the deflation's always been the enemy of the federal banks, the central bankers, the unknown central bankers. Deflation has always been the enemy, and what's going on right now is very, very, very inflation. So it's very, very helpful for creating or stimulating the economy by giving a check to every man, woman, and child, by giving a check to every business. That's going to be stimulating the economy, which is going to actually be helping to bring up the economy. I know the short-term effect is very bad because everything is shut down, but once the stimulus money kicks in, then the economy is going to pick back up. However, it's going to make the money that you have worth less. So you have to be very careful with what you do with that money, and that's what I'm saying. There's probably places to put the money that make more sense than other places. I would suggest real estate. I would also suggest fixed monetary assets like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has a set value of 21 million. It's a medium of exchange. You can exchange it back and forth. You can use it to buy things. You can go on to overstock.com and buy items with Bitcoin. I buy a lot of stuff online with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's a very good place to put money right now. And maybe if you don't have a lot of money to invest, I think Bitcoin would be a good place to go. If you can't buy $1 million house, or if you can't get a loan to buy even $100,000 house, you might want to put $1,000 or $500 in Bitcoin. A very, very good idea, because we are going to be in a massive inflationary time. Not deflationary, inflation, because of the money that's going to be created. And that's really the only way this can go. It's never going to go deflationary, because if it goes deflationary, everything goes backs up, and everything stops, and then nobody has a job. But the problem with the deflationary issue is the fact that technology is deflationary. So during the last 20 years of computing power increasing every few years, we have created less jobs. So every time that some new technology comes out, for instance, right now we have technology of a self-driving car or a self-driving truck. It hasn't happened yet, but if you look throughout the states in the United States, a lot of people work in transportation. A lot of people drive truck. A lot of people deliver to these businesses that are shut down right now. Of course, they're out of work right now, but that's a lot of employment in technology. And of course, I know quite a bit about the Tesla car, self-driving car. If you apply that technology to a driverless truck, you're going to eliminate a lot of jobs throughout the country. That would be very deflationary, because if you take those jobs away from all those people and they don't have any income anymore, or they don't have any jobs anymore, then they don't have a paycheck and they're not needed, which means, and you have been more, now the system is more efficient because you don't need somebody driving a truck. It's become more efficient to have a truck run. You're actually making it cheaper to operate. So if you make it cheaper to operate, that's deflationary. Computers have made it cheaper to run the world. I mean, there's so many jobs that are done on computers now that it's taken so many jobs out of the economy because of technology. I saw this back on the farm when I was a young man. When I was a kid, farmers would farm 130, 140, 150, 160 acres. That was a normal sized farm. And then as the tractors got bigger, the equipment got wider, the planters got more rows. It made it so you needed fewer farmers. So as you needed fewer farmers, then there weren't as many jobs on the farm, and not only weren't as many jobs on the farm, there wasn't as many farmers. So that was kind of a deflationary thing where it took away from the farming, the amount of people farming. So there are fewer jobs, fewer everything. We've been going through this for a long time, this deflationary cycle of technology. Technology has been removing jobs from our economy. And I've been thinking about this a lot because I see so much going on. I mean, I think all the time about Amazon. I think how Amazon is destroying retail, because I see fewer people. Like you, for instance, here in San Diego, we've got stores called Fry's Electronics. And they're huge, massive stores. If you've been to one, I think there's some in Las Vegas, and there's some in Arizona, and there's a lot here in San Diego County. And these are massive stores. And of course, during the early 2000s, these stores were incredibly busy, and they were incredibly fun to go to. I mean, I used to love to go to Fry's Electronics because you could buy a lot of cool things. And they were, great places to buy and shop and look and see all the latest gadgets going on. Well, there got to be a lot of rumors that the Fry's were shutting down. So I started watching videos on YouTube about Fry's Electronics, and they've turned into ghost stores. So you go in there and there's really literally nobody in Fry's because the technology has changed the way their business model works. Their business model works now where people go to Amazon to buy, or people go online to buy technology or to buy electronics. They don't buy it through a regular brick and mortar store like they used to. Same thing with Walmart, and the same thing with Target, and the same thing with Kmart, and the same thing with all the other big box stores. People are buying more and more online. So that has been very deflationary. So people that work at these jobs at cash registers, people that work at these jobs, they no longer have jobs, so they got to have some other means of income. And if they don't have that means of income, then we go back into a deflationary. There becomes less jobs, which means there's less need for housing, there's less need for everything, because people don't have any money. So there's got to be another way to pump the things back up. And of course, one of the ways to pump things back up is to create some inflationary cycle, some way of inflation happening. And this is going to be an incredible inflationary time where everybody's going to get some money from the government because of this virus. So it's actually going to counteract this huge problem that the federal government has, or the federal central bankers, the unknown central bankers, of deflation, and technology being deflationary is going to be counteracted by this virus with an incredible amount of money being printed and inflation. So that is going on right now. And that's one of the questions I'm asking myself. I mean, how long will this virus continue to have everybody like streets like they are tonight? Are we going on into summer with this? How long is it going to go on? And how much stimulus is it going to take to get everybody through it and get everything back to where it was before? I'm willing to guess it's going to take an incredible amount of money. And that whatever they did in 2008 with the banking crisis is going to be like mild compared to the stimulus that's going to take to get it going back again. And I think the stimulus checks are going to continue to be coming. I mean, they're a little bit slow getting these first set of checks out. I think they were supposed to be a week ago or so. Now they're talking about next week, but I think you'll get one next week. And then I think you'll probably continue to get them for some time, as long as they keep this economy going. They're going to be like a basic universal income, UBI, where you're going to get enough money to live on. You're not going to get enough money to, have an extravagant life, but you're going to have enough money to live on. And that's going to be very, very inflationary, which is going to help the economy to continue to grow. It's going to help the stock market to continue to rise. It's going to help everybody. But at the same time, it's going to make things more expensive, and it's going to create a bigger divide between the people that have money and the people that don't have money, because the people that have money, as things inflate, if you own a house, it's great because your house becomes worth more money. But if you don't own a house and you're trying to get the money together to buy a house, you're going to have a harder time, because that house is going to get more and more harder to buy, because the money that you own is going to get worth less and less and less. So that's kind of what we got going on, this yin and yang thing about either deflation, inflation, inflation, and at some point, something's going to break. Either you just can't, you print so much money that it becomes literally, Weimar Germany, where you're running around with wheelbarrows with money. Oh, that's the other thing I think is going to happen very soon too, is the cash will be removed from the system. And I think they got a very good reason for cash to be removed from the system right now, because obviously and I've had this happen to me twice, stores that do not want to take cash, because if I'm carrying the virus and I happen to have a $10 bill in my hand and I sneeze, and some of the droplets, some of the virus that I have carrying in my saliva would happen to get on that $10 bill. It goes into the register. The very next person comes up and gets the $10 bill that I just had in my hand back as change. Then they now have the virus because I carried it on that bill. So you're going to see paper money go away, and that's been something that they've been working on for quite some time. But paper money is going to go away because of this virus, because it can now be a means of transmitting virus back and forth. So you'll see paper money go away. So that's another reason why I think digital money, Bitcoin, EOS, these kinds of digital monies are going to become more and more valuable because of this. But the biggest thing that I'm trying to say is the system will break, because at some point you just cannot print enough money to keep things going. It's going to break. I mean, even with the stimulus that we have going now, they're going to get the economy back rolling again. And you're going to have people survive and people eat, and nobody's going to starve, and you're going to live and you're going to make it through this time. But it's going to have to continue to happen. If it doesn't continue to happen, then we'll go back to deflationary again. And if we go back to deflationary, then everything retracts and everybody does nothing, because everything becomes less and less valuable. And as things become less valuable, nobody's willing to do anything. Nobody wants to build, nobody wants to create, nobody wants to do anything. So in this kind of inflationary world that we live in, we're going to have some sort of way of being able to offset these incredible amounts of money that we're creating, that we need to create in order to continue to grow the economy. The only reasonable solution that I can come up with would be a digital currency, a Bitcoin, the Bitcoin protocol, something like that. It's interesting to me that the very smartest people right now that are working on this are people that are outside the age group that truly understand digital currencies. It just so happens I'm outside of the age group that understand digital currencies. The only reason I understand digital currencies is because my son was so fascinated with it, and he got me interested in it. But most of the economists that are trying to evaluate this time, they're using models from the Great Depression. The Great Depression happened in the 1920s and 30s. We're in 2020. That's 100 years ago. How do you compare what happened 100 years ago to what's going on today? I mean, and that's truly what's going on. It's like comparing, the war of, that were happening in Afghanistan to the war that took place in, the Civil War that took place in the United States. I mean, there's no way to compare the two wars. I mean, the technology is completely different. Times are completely different. The world's different. Politics is different. The way people think are different. Everything's different. There's no way you can compare what goes on, what went on, in the Civil War to what goes on today and wars that go on today. There's no way you can compare what happened in 1929 and 1930 to what's going on in 2020, because in 2020, we do have an alternative. We have a digital money. We have a Bitcoin. We have something that can be used as an exchange back and forth, and a way to hedge against inflation, and a way to protect your money from being basically just completely worthless, which is where we're going, and where I think we're already at here, especially after going through this, this stimulus that we're going to take to get us back up and running this time. And, the next one, which I think there will be a next one, and I don't know if it'll be a virus or it could be something else, could possibly be something else, but the government's going to have to continue to keep printing and creating money to keep this economy going, like they've done ever since, the 1971s when we went off the gold standard, and even before, post World War II. Or post-Depression, where we needed to create money. And of course, what got us out of the Depression was the war, because all of a sudden there was production. Production needed to be created for the war, and of course the jobs program and all the things that the government used to pump up the economy after post-Depression is what got us out of the Depression. Well, that's what's going to happen here too. This is basically what's going on right now in this virus is basically what happened in the Depression with World War II. That World War II was what kind of got us out of the Great Depression, got the factories back to working, got things got going back together. It pumped money into the system. This is basically what this virus is doing for us right now. This is going to take, and it's going to create money and put a lot of money back into the system. The system needs money right now to get up and running from this great calamity that we're going through right now. Kind of like what happened back then. You need some great catastrophe for all of a sudden something that we need to create a lot of, it's going to also create a lot of new areas of study. People are going to start studying viruses. People are going to start studying how to deal with the next one. People are going to start studying, immunology and all the other different things. I'm not a person that likes that kind of work, but I think a lot of that's going to start taking place too. So anyway, interesting times that we live in. And I think that there's some questions that are going to have to be answered here fairly quickly. I personally don't put much faith and trust in Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is much like Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump is, he's an actor playing a role. And the good thing about Donald Trump is he goes off script every now and then. Basically, he's an actor playing a role. He does, I don't think he knows everything going on. I think he's got a lot of people telling him what to go on, like a director does in a movie. If you're playing a role in a movie, you got a lot of people giving you lines, telling you what to say. It's already been scripted for you, and you know what to do. And I kind of think Donald Trump's like that kind of person. But Donald Trump's a little bit different than most presidents that are playing the role of the President of the United States. Donald Trump goes off script every now and then and will surprise you, and he'll add his own lines. He'll put his own lines into the script. I mean, whatever the playwright, the writer wrote, he'll add his own lines and he'll kind of create his own script every now and then. So he is a little bit different in that respect. But I don't think that he's the person that's going to figure this out and get this all squared away. But these are interesting times, and I think there's some interesting things up ahead. I believe that Bitcoin is going to be a tremendous opportunity for you to buy right now. That's me personally. I'm not telling anybody to do that because obviously it's all I can speak for is myself. I can't speak for anybody else in their situation, what they're doing. But I think that that's an opportunity where a little bit of money can do something pretty big. And I think the whole cryptocurrency market is going to do very well through this inflationary time that we're going through. And the other thing that's going on, and I'm rambling here a little bit, but I'm thinking of this stuff as I go along. The other thing that's going on is they're having a hard time getting the stimulus money out to people. It's taken a long time for that to happen. If we were in digital money times, it would be pretty instantaneous. I mean, I can make a transfer to somebody in Bitcoin in just a few seconds. I mean, if my son needs some Bitcoin to do something, to pay somebody, I just send it, he sends me his address, and I just, go on and I just send him the money, and he's usually got it within, I'll ask him, I say, you got it already? And he usually gets it within a few seconds. especially if we're dealing with EOS. He just gets it in a few seconds. I just, whatever he needs, I just send it to him, and he's got it in his wallet in just a few seconds. Just think of if the government had that going on with stimulus right now, how quickly, we wouldn't have people right now that would be, considering, how they're going to feed themselves in the next week or 2 or 3 or 4 until these stimulus checks get in their hands. So that's another reason for digital money is the speed at which things can be done. And also the fact that, you could control the inflation, deflationary cycles better with the digital money than you can through this constant borrowing and this constant need to keep ahead of technology by creating and inflating currency. So anyway, hopefully I didn't lose people with this discussion. I know it may be a little bit more than a lot of people want to think about. A lot of people like to think of things really simply and like to make quick answers and quick ideas. But this is not a time for you just to think really superficially about things, because we are in very, very, very stressful times, and we are in a time of what would you say? I would say we're in a great time of change. It's probably, and I'm 60 years old. I'll be 60 years old in May. We are probably in the greatest time of change in my lifetime. This is the most. This is the in my entire life. This will probably be the biggest paradigm shift and change of how things are going to be different in ways that I haven't even thought of yet. But how things are going to be different in the future. We will be living in a different world here very soon than we are today. Very much different. So it's very much a time to think about the things that I've been talking about in this video, because a lot of people, there could possibly be, a time where everybody's going to have some sort of universal income, universal EBI, universal basic income, where everybody will not be able to have enough money to live on if the money continues to be this worthless, and we keep needing to quantitative easing and create and print. It's going to get to the point where people are going to be handing out money for you to live on, and then that's not going to be enough. So we've got to have some stability someplace. At some point, there's going to have to be some price, something that is it's like one of the guys I was listening to today. There's going to have to be a point at some point where the balance sheet adds up, where it actually makes sense. It's just not some created out of thin air. We'll just keep doing this until, the world runs out. I don't know. But anyway, like I say, a long video. Hopefully I didn't lose too many people, and hopefully I have some comments, because I'd like to see what people have to say about this. Thank you very much.